Do not adjust your radio dial. You are tuned in to the Mark Order Podcast. Join the Mark Order.
What's up? It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. It's the Mark Order Podcast. We got a two-person crew, a permutation, a combination that you have yet to see. Just Kate and Asian Joe. No Ryan tonight because he can't even bother to show up to the show anymore, much less go to events. No Ant because he and Mom went on vacation. They're on a cruise. They left us money, but not enough to get wings and soda, which is such a bummer.
Or pizza.
Pizza. We didn't even get lava cake. We got nothing. We got nothing, Joe.
No,
but
I'm eating gas station donuts.
Gas station donuts, oh my God. Now that I eat vegetables on purpose, everything else sounds like I'm so satisfied in my diet, but then when I hear people doing things like eating gas station donuts, I'm wildly jealous. Like I had the most amazing soup earlier, and then someone mentioned mac and cheese, and I was like, I miss you, mac and cheese.
I don't think I've ever used the phrase "the most amazing soup ever." When
but it's like
food.
It's soup weather. You know what I mean? So it's just that like it was like chilly. I got in for my walk with Daphne, and then there was warm soup right there.
Mm-hmm.
It was so flavorful. I was like, yeah. Plus, like I had my little roll on the side. Everything was delightful. You're not a soup guy? Is Takeshita gonna come after you?
I like soup. I'm more of a chili person. I mean, you know.
Okay, fair. Same fam.
They're not the same, but yeah, in the same area.
Yeah.
Have you ever had like an amazing salad then? Like, have you had like...
No, salad is bullshit. I mean, I've had amazing fruit salad because fruit is great.
Of course.
But like, no. Like I'll eat salad if it's there and I have to, but it's not my default. The best salad is when it's like unrecognizable as salad, which doesn't say a lot for salad. You know what I mean? Like
pasta salad, macaroni salad.
Yeah, or just like it's loaded up with so much stuff that it doesn't even resemble salad anymore. Like if you get like a salad bowl, but it's really just like a taco bowl, you know what I mean?
Taco salads are my favorite salads. Yeah,
they're delightful. They are delightful. But guys, we have so much to talk about because Wrestledreams is around the corner, and I am going. I'm so excited. My Wrestledreams are all coming true. I get to work it. I get to see some great matches. I'm sure there will be a press scrum after, which will go till like 3 a.m. because I don't know what this new era is all about, but we're going to talk all about it here on the Mark Order Podcast tonight. But other than soups and salad, other than our Panera-sounding opening to the show, how are you, Joe?
I'm good. I got a new cell phone the other day, like last week, so I've been working on getting everything moved over and used to that. So,
are you on the 15 now?
I am the 15 Pro Max Extra. Take all my money phone.
Dang, I'm still on like the 8 or some shit. I don't know. I was several systems behind. Actually, the last phone I got was a replacement phone for when I went to Death Before Dishonor. My phone broke whilst I was there. Should have figured. I was with Matt and Ant, who are on this show. And I was like, oh, my phone's acting weird. And then by the end of it, it was like, blurp, you're no longer a phone. Which is a bummer because I got some pictures that I was able to salvage, but there are some pictures at that point too. I thought it was the finalist of all final battles. Like we didn't know what was happening with ROH. So I was like, oh no, I can't even like document the experience. And this could be the last ROH event ever.
Well, in a sense, it kind of was.
In a sense, it kind of was. Oh boy, we'll talk a little bit about that. But
how are you?
Oh, I'm miserable actually, but
Oh.
I'm happy to be watching and talking about wrestling tonight. My day job has had a rough go of it lately. I'm in a little bit of a weird transitional period with a lot of things in my life actually, but like nothing that's permanent. Like it's all temporary, but if
All will be well after you see Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr.
all my technical issues will be cleared up.
Right.
I know that much because the techers are going to be at it. But that card is shaping up to be a hell of a card. If anybody is going, feel free to say hi if you see me. Working shows is very different than just attending shows a lot of the time. At least in my one experience doing it at Forbidden Door, so I don't know if I'll be out there as much, but I'm looking forward to going to see it. The card is crazy. I'm intrigued about whatever this new era is. We can hypothesize on that later. It might just be HBO Max. Like it might very well could just be Max, but we are going to talk about all that and more. But let's talk a little bit about AEW. We had a 2-hour Grand Slam Rampage. We're going to go through the card, but I got to say, like, if you don't have 2 hours of programming to build to, doing a 2-hour Rampage was just exhausting and unnecessary. Last year, we got the Great Muta coming out to confront Sting, which was cool, and we had Starks and Hobbs. The year before that, I can't remember what it was. I think it was just loaded like the other years because we had Danielson and Omega in the first Dynamite ever, and then the Rampage had like a bunch of stuff on it. But this one just felt like an unnecessary extra hour, which is exhausting from the live experience. Other than getting to see people at the show, like we would have left early. Like there was no need to. We're not like leave early show type people.
Right.
But we were all in agreement on the way out. Like, hey, we're not like normally leave at the main event kind of people, but we don't need to stay for a 2-hour Rampage on a school night of all nights. But there was some chit chat about Tony Khan maybe making that a New York pay-per-view next time too, which is interesting. But we're going to run down the Rampage card right now. Overall, Grand Slam was really, really fun.
I was going to ask you how it compared to the last. I mean, you've been to just one before, both of them before.
I did all of them. We
Okay,
did all of them. So last year was Chicken Tender Gate. The year before that was Kenny and Danielson. So
how do you stack the three together? Like if you rank them in order?
Oh man, they've done a good job of making them all feel special. I think I would probably go the first one, this one, and then last year's, just from the perspective of to date, this could very well change next week, but to date, I think Kenny and Danielson was the best live match I've ever seen. The first one was just so special, and it was the first time they did it right. It's the first time they ran a wrestling event there too. And that was one of the earlier women's main events as well with Britt and Ruby. So that was all really exciting. But like Danielson was so new to the company then. We're getting a dream match kind of right in the beginning of his reign. Like it was just such a special, special moment. And my God, like I can go back and watch that now and it gives me chills. But like what I remember is being there and just the crowd being so sustained in the reaction. And like, it's not always that you realize in real time that you're seeing something really special, but because it was a dream match, like you did. It kind of felt that way with Danielson Okada too. Like the only thing that rivals Kenny and Danielson that I saw live was Kenny and Omega and Ospreay, right? But like this one was so insane because who knew if Danielson was going to come to AEW? Like, so I think for how special that was, I probably go with that. For me, obviously, Eddie Kingston winning is like, that was a huge, huge, huge moment and a very satisfying moment as a fan. I thought MJF and Samoa Joe was great too. Like that was so special. The second one, you got Saraya's debut. You had a lot of cool stuff last time too, but I feel like just from like banger front to back, this year's was pretty damn good.
That's fair. I think that's probably what I have them ranked at too. I mean, first being first, this one being second, and the second one being third.
Yeah, I think the other thing is too, like when you from the live experience perspective, the first one because it was such a big deal, was packed out. And it was also the first event they'd run there since COVID. So concessions were a disaster. If you wanted merch, God forbid you were in line for a half hour. Like, it was nuts. And now, obviously, as live events have resumed and people were more prepared, like it's an easier experience. And this time was just really fun because this was the first time I got to tailgate for the entire time with my friends. They've tailgated all 3 years. I've showed up late the other 2 because of work. And then this one, it was just like an easier in and out. The other times I like stayed at my sister's and was rushing. And like this time it was just like Matt drove, super easy. Didn't really have to think about anything. I also knew more people who were there just from like working at Fightful and having friends kind of in the space. So I got to like tailgate with them and say hi to them. It was really, really fun. Beautiful weather all 3 years actually. But this year was just like, from a logistics perspective, like very, very easy going because I wasn't trying to do 8 different things around it. Yeah. But let's talk about the live Collision or the live Rampage experience. We can kind of run down what had happened there. You had Darby Allin and Sting versus Christian and Luchasaurus, with Sting and Darby coming out on top. Obviously, what we saw on Collision, this took a different turn, but like it's never not special to see Sting live, and this version of Christian is so fun. Any thoughts on this?
No, I agree. Like, I don't want to ever take it for granted to watch Sting wrestle at 64, whether he's 63 or 64 years old, and to see him do what he does still. And that little like the Scorpion Death coffin drop thing they did at the end. Beautiful. So bananas fun. As someone who like didn't watch Sting really in real time other than the WWE run, which was not great, like it's just so cool to see. And it's also fun because Ryan's a WCW mark and Matt's a Sting enough guy, and so is Ant, that like it's just really, it's fun for me to see and special for me to see, but like for them seeing like their childhood still be on screen is just a whole bunch of fun. Right. I grew up with Surfer Sting in the 90s, and I never saw Surfer Sting because WCW never really toured in my area. So
sure.
So yeah,
Surfer Sting is my favorite Sting.
He's great. It's like
I love Surfer Sting.
It's like the better version of Ultimate Warrior. So
yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. The non-racist, better version promos.
Yeah, he was definitely the better half of the Blade Runners.
For sure. We have Orange Cassidy, Chris Statlander, and Hook versus 2.0 and Anna Jay. This was just a fun mixed trios match. This was perfectly fine. They actually taped these. They had 2 matches before Dynamite started, and this was one of them. So they led us to this false belief that we were going to get out like a half hour early because they taped a couple beforehand. They still went to like 11:51 p.m. or whatever. But this match was one of those earlier ones. And so what was fun was the crowd that was there was super excited. Like Chris got such a huge pop. I got to watch this back, and Ian Riccaboni on commentary is so much fun. But the big thing with this was that triple suplex spot I thought was so much fun.
That's literally the 2 words I have written down for this match are just triple suplex.
I love it. Orange Cassidy, Hook, and Chris Statlander getting the W here, of course. The Hardys versus the Kingdom versus the Righteous versus the Best Friends. Now, this one surprised me, but I'm a Righteous fan, so I actually really, really liked it. These matches, I don't even know why you have a referee out there, but other than that, I thought this was perfectly suitable. I don't understand what we're putting off with the Kingdom. I wonder if maybe the Kingdom was supposed to go over, but then when Cole got injured, maybe they said, let's call an audible. I don't know. Or maybe the plan's been the Righteous all along. I really love them. I think people have a lack of familiarity with them. They're 2 of my favorites. But I think a surprise win here. Do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I was thought the Kingdom are going to win this. So having the Righteous win is nice. Having them being built up
since they came over to the AEW side of things. It's good to have them kind of elevated right away, and especially the people who don't know them, to kind of put them in the limelight for a little bit. I don't know how believable they were to beat Adam Cole and MJF before everything went on, but now, I mean, who knows? And I won't be mad at it. So.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see if somebody comes to MJF's rescue, like if they put Roddy in there as a can they coexist kind of thing. I think could be a really, really fun idea. Or if MJF really does defend him on his own at Wrestledream. We get the Dark Order versus the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass in an obvious outcome. The Acclaimed and Daddy Ass are your winners here. This was a fun note to send them home on, but like the Dark Order, you just got to start getting them some wins if you want them to be believable ass kickers in this kind of more heel role. But this was a perfectly fine match. This was the main event of the night from the taping perspective. I don't remember if it was from the how it aired perspective. Or no, it definitely wasn't because there was a title change later. But this was perfectly fine. Any thoughts on this?
The only thought I had really is that with the trios belts, I need a story. I mean, we have so many open challenges going on right now with the international title, with, the tag team titles are kind of like, they have all these challenger, matches to set those up. I need a story. I need a story for the trios belt instead of just kind of random open challenges.
I agree. And I also think like you're right in that there isn't, not only is there not a lot of story, but like, it's just, the stories end up being tournaments and they're just trying to use tournaments kind of as a crutch. So I'm with you on that. We get Julia Hart and Sky Blue in a fine match. This was fine. Julia Hart versus Chris Statlander at Wrestledream feels pretty lame. I get the story there that the last person that beat Chris Statlander was Julia Hart, and I also understand that she's on a hell of a winning streak. None of those wins have been that impactful. So this is not what I want to see at Wrestledream. Or if this is what I'm going to see at Wrestledream, one of 3 women's matches makes sense. If I'm getting this along with Athena versus somebody and your world title picture or whatever, that piques my interest a lot more. Some word that maybe Mariah May shows up at the end of this, but we will see. I loved the superplex into the Tree of Woe spot. I thought that was really, really fantastic. But Julia Hart getting the W here. It makes wrestling sense. I can't argue with it. It just doesn't have that like feeling that she's been on this role because the matches have been kind of tucked away. And I feel like her utilization has been more to put over the rest of House of Black. But this is fine. Any thoughts?
No, you're absolutely right. I when they said that he had won 24 matches straight coming into this match, I had no clue that she was on a 24 match win streak. And like, I'm wondering like how far back to that date, because I don't remember her wrestling that much.
I know. I'm like, are those hangover wins from when AEW Dark was a thing?
Right.
But yeah. We get Mike Santana versus Bronson and the Mogul Embassy versus the Hung Bucks closing us out here. You knew what Santana and Bronson was going to be. He got a really nice hometown reception there. I love the Iron Savages, so that's perfectly fine. This just was what it was. This was a quick little squash in here, but got Santana back out in front of the home crowd. Anything you want to add there?
No, I think you hit it all. I think it was what it was, and we got to see Santana and Ortiz, plant the seeds for that program. So that'll be fun to watch.
So I do want to clarify too. There was a report out there, not from Fightful. I'm not trying to bury anyone, but I will clarify it wasn't a Fightful report. That was not the tweets that were exchanged were not kayfabe. Clearly, they were. There was a video package produced around this whole angle. Now we got to see it come to life. From what I've heard, they are still not on great terms. Like they're not going to be working together at tag time anytime soon, but they're not on such bad terms. They're not willing to make money out of it. So just some clarification up front for people that those reports turned out to maybe not be as accurate as initially perceived. But then your ROH World 6-Man Tag Team Championships Flipping hands here from the Mogul Embassy to the Hung Bucks. I have mixed feelings on this, but I can't say that the match wasn't really good. I don't love that it seems like the Hung Bucks work Wednesdays. Like, they don't work Saturdays. Punk there or not, it just feels like they're Dynamite guys. They work Wednesdays. They probably weren't planning on working Saturdays because I don't think they were assuming that CM Punk was going to punch somebody in the head. Maybe they should have. Maybe they did. I don't know. But I don't think they're suddenly opening up their Saturday schedule on a consistent basis. And ROH tapes with the Collision taping cycle, right? So I feel like them not defending an ROH gives me the same frustrations as the tag titles, gave me the same frustrations as when Claudio was champion. Maybe we'll see different there. But a lot of the titles still aren't around ROH outside of Athena being your MVP. Now, the good of this, I think, is one, it's very clear to me that they're trying to have some sort of record-setting gate, right? You have MJF and Adam Cole with the tag titles to this point. Obviously, that's changed a little bit. But you have the trios on the Hung Bucks. You've got Eddie Kingston there. You got Samoa Joe with the TV title. Like, it feels like they're trying to make ROH feel like a big deal. And I like seeing an effort there, which makes me very, very happy. I also feel like they haven't built up contenders the entire time the Mogul Embassy had the damn titles. And half the time Brian Cage wasn't around. And it was just the Iron Savages and tag matches with their trios belts. So I do feel like whoever the Hung Bucks drop to are inherently going to feel like a bigger deal because they're top stars in the parent company, right? So it's going to have more of an impact when they lose those belts, assuming it's going to be to actual ROH talent. I feel like there's a lot of fun that could be had with like the Hung Bucks against Dalton Castle and the Boys, for example. Like, that could be a whole bunch of fun. Very intrigued to see what's coming together with this new Shane Taylor Promotions. We have Shane Taylor and Lee Moriarty there. There's some more openings that are available for Shane Taylor Promotions. That being a really effective trios run to kind of pick up where old ROH left off. I think you could do a lot of really great work with. But I just want to see my trios on the show that I love to watch and that I also review. So selfishly, I would prefer it's very interesting because then I can't skip any weeks here. But what are your thoughts on the match and also the booking that we got on Rampage here?
The match was good. A lot of fun combo offense to watch between these teams. And then as far as the outcome, same thoughts as far as what they're going to do with them, because the Bucks are so Dynamite and sometimes Collision heavy AEW wrestlers. And like you said, there's so many belts that on guys who are on AEW programming that it kind of lessens and then make it feel like ROH has the separate brand identity as much. I do hope that they can drop them and lose them to a team and really help propel them, such as you mentioned Dalton Castle, you mentioned Shane Taylor Promotions. I know that they just lost, but like maybe this is the final time they pull the trigger on Dark Order, since they've been kind of teasing them. With some segments with Heyman and it's on the BTE. So maybe they start that program. I think Dark Order would be a place for to go to ROH and do some stuff. So that's what my hope is, that they hopefully drop it to someone who, like you said, is in ROH and will defend them ROH.
Agreed. I think the Dark Order is kind of the obvious story there, right? You've had this whole relationship for years with Adam Page. They had this really cool story going where it felt like they were almost being absorbed into the Righteous via Stu Grayson. There was a really, really great feud that was like a custody feud for Stu Grayson. But then they were almost hinting like maybe the whole Dark Order is going to join the Righteous and follow him over there. So there's some really interesting wrinkles to that story. I think Stu Grayson is fantastic. I would actually like to see Stu Grayson kind of on his own or competing in singles competition, even if he is in a faction, because I just think like a pure title match with Stu Grayson and it feels like a whole bunch of fun. Also note on that 2-hour Rampage, Sammy Guevara is full heel now under the Don Callis family. I actually really think this is probably the most productive thing they've done with Sammy Guevara in years. He was getting his ass booed so loud live. He desperately needed to get away from Jericho. And this just feels kind of like the heel that he probably should be, in my opinion. Like, he needs Don Callis to help him out. But I feel like I have way more of an interest in Sammy Guevara with Takeshita than I do with Chris Jericho with Takeshita. Because Takeshita and Sammy offer such different things. Interested in seeing them tag, interested in seeing them separate. We're going to talk about them teaming up with Will Ospreay, which I think is going to be interesting as hell, to be honest. But I really, really, really like this. Like, I think this is a good, healthy move for Sammy Guevara that's long overdue. Any thoughts on what we saw span across 2 episodes of television here with Dynamite and Rampage?
It was interesting because they had worked so hard to get Sammy to be a face, right? Like, him announcing he was going to have a baby barely popped in one. I mean, if you can't get a cheer for that, then... Yeah. But then he finally got, the crowd behind him against Jericho. And all of a sudden, it's like, just as you're building that momentum, like, nope, we're going to go back to the, the slimy, cocky, arrogant Sammy heel, which is fine, because, I mean, it's more natural for him. But the only thing I have an issue with, like, he wears a lot of white and bright colors, and, like, I feel like the Don Callis family is very dark and, like, suits and black, and it just, I always like my faction to be more, uniformed. But
sure, that's very fair. That's a good nitpick, though. That's a fair one. Maybe they're trying to have some differentiation in the personalities because Takeshita and Sammy are so different, but that's a fair thing. I like that the Blackpool Combat Club all come out and, like, I'm going to kick your ass gym clothes, essentially. Like, I'm with you on that. I can hear that loud and clear.
I still kind of want to see the JAS to kind of get absorbed into the Callis family. And, they don't have to be, they can kind of be henchmen, Guy Magic and Kool and Ange and Anna Jay and I guess Hager.
I mean, we'll see what happens with Hager. This is all very weird. He did announce that he's retired from MMA as Bellator shut down. So, Bellator legend.
Undefeated, isn't he? Like 2-0?
I think so. I think he's 2-0, yeah.
Retire on top, yeah.
But good stuff on that 2-hour Rampage. Just was very, very long to be there in person. But good enough. Good enough. So let's flip into Collision because there has been some good juice on Collision. This card was absolutely stacked and it delivered. This was a whole bunch of fun, and we did get a title change off the bat here. We have Christian winning the title from himself. A lot of people were saying he retained, and I said, no. He just won the title, but he won it from himself. This was so much fun. Yeah, it's a 2-time champion, undefeated, which is something that most people don't get to be. It's a really special place in wrestling. I think this is a whole bunch of fun. I loved the interplay during the match. I don't understand why Christian doesn't have turtlenecks being sold. He's hysterical. And man, oh man, Darby Allin he will take a beating. This was Darby taking a beating. But Christian emerging as your TNT champion, you don't even have to take new promo pics. He's had the belt the whole time. The entire time Luchasaurus was champion, his promo pic on the website, he didn't have the belt. I thought that was one of the funniest things that they did. I love seeing websites using things like that as a place to have a little bit of fun. They don't always do that. So this was great. I absolutely adored it. Your thoughts on our opener here?
Having Christian win serves so many purposes with advancing the story between Darby and Nick Wayne, but also advancing the story with him and Luchasaurus as they kind of continue to tease that electric chair spot of Luchasaurus holding Christian on his shoulders, and eventually, we all know it's going to happen that he's going to drop him. So I like the fact that the right person won and is officially, rightfully claimed as the TNT champion.
Yes, it is good that is official. He actually, like, from a for real perspective, needs to be in the record books in this way. Like, he's been so absolutely invaluable. So I am very, very happy to see that. This is really, really good stuff. So I am happy about getting to see Christian as a winner. Joe, also, if you want to check your text and or the chat, that would be delightful if you don't mind. But Hook and RVD versus Cool Hand Ange and Daddy Magic. You want to know what makes Daddy Magic's nipples hard? RVD in his hometown. I pop for Walk, man. Okay, I love Pantera. I gotta say, like, of all the kind of older guys that come around, RVD has looked better than most. Like, he adjusted so well in his age. Like, he looks like he's not trying to outdo himself with any of this. There were RVD chants before this even got underway, which I thought was so much fun. But this was everything that you wanted it to be. Hook and RVD come out with the W here. This was just a fun thing to throw on the card. Any thoughts?
No, I'm surprised that RVD is still pretty fluid in the ring for his age. He still does a lot of spots that I wouldn't think he'd be able to do anymore. And yeah, it was just kind of fun to throw Hook in there and to have that tie-in with, RVD having tagged with Taz, years ago. So kind of have it come full circle.
Yeah, that was a blast. That was a whole bunch of fun. We get a great women's match here. I will say Julia Hart looks a lot better than she has. Those reps are starting to pay off, and we see her versus Kiera Hogan. This was what it was. I think her match tonight was a little bit stronger, but she does improve time after time, which was really good to see. The moonsault tonight was great. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it kind of just almost felt like a rerun of what they did on Rampage with Julia. Like, they're still trying to get some of those consistencies down, but this was perfectly fine. Again, this is kind of where the Wrestledream match got set up. I just don't really care for it. Any thoughts here?
I'm glad Kiera Hogan got on TV.
Yes.
I mean, as far as finding someone to replace Willow, I mean, that's a great choice.
Yes, agreed. So they did. It was originally supposed to be Willow. She was taken out. She was obviously medically okay. We saw her show up today, so must have been a different conflict of some sort. But man, oh man, do we swing into Andrade versus Jay White in what I anticipated being a great match, and I was not disappointed. Holy hell, please run this back at some point. This was so much fun. You have Andrade getting his hands on Jay White here. It's just weird because it feels like all of Andrade's friends should be coming along to help him out, but they're murdering people in Mexico. So I don't know if they're going to jump him out, but it does seem like we've set up two situations where it's been like Andrade begging for something with a faction, and then that has gotten wiped out by storyline. So I hope that we get Andrade and the rest of the BCC. I think Andrade versus Austin Gunn would be hysterical, actually. But either way, please run this back because holy hell, this was a bunch of fun. So many good things in there. There was some beautiful DDTs works in here from Jay White. Incredibly hard hitting, incredibly stiff even late in the match. I kept waiting for either one of them to get fatigued, and they were like, nope, not today. But what were your thoughts on this? I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, it was my most anticipated match of the week, and it was just like I tried to describe it as just like a good old fashioned pro wrestling match. Like, it was just a classic hard hitting, fast paced match where you didn't have a lot of the flips or a lot of the rope work, but just strikes and just grapples and holds, and it was everything. It was a nice throwback. And the strikes at the end with Andrade's elbow strike to Jay White's head at the end. I mean, and we kind of knew the shenanigan finish were going to happen just because of the numbers game.
Of course.
But, yeah. So hopefully he gets some help, or they just find another way to run it back, like you said, because we need more of it.
Agreed. So I didn't like the finish. It felt very WWE schmozzy to me, but I got to say, if anybody can pull it off, it's Juice. Like, that guy's just so damn funny. I love this. And one thing that I've liked about Collision, and this goes back to the CM Punk era of Collision, which was a whopping like 2.5 months long or whatever. But I feel like on most episodes of Collision, and I think on this one we got a few of them, there's always one match where it's just like, holy shit, that's a pro wrestling match. This was that match on this episode until what we talked about in a little bit here. That death match. Bryan Danielson was not kept in his Zorb ball, much to the dismay of Zack Sabre Jr. But my God, this episode had a few of them. But I love I wish the finish had been clean. I'm wondering if they run it back with a clean finish, but I love that Collision usually has one match where they're like, it's going to be like 20 plus minutes or somewhere around there in that range. And it's just going to be, you're going to want your popcorn. And if you're a wrestling fan, you're going to see some pro wrestling on your show. I love that about that. And it helps it feel like an alternative from Dynamite, because today was like an hour and a half of talking, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
And they have the superior stage, right? The presentation is far superior than Dynamite.
Joe, let me tell you about this stage, okay? When you go to Collision in person, the stage looks so good. I love it so much. It is nice that they feel distinct. Sincerely, I know I've talked a lot about how great the stage at Collision is, but it does feel nice that it feels like they're making an effort to maintain two separate products. I feel like this felt more identifiable on its own than last week's. Like when you're running into the pay-per-view, it just felt like an extended Dynamite, right? But when it feels like there's going to be an effort to make sure that they still feel like different flavors, which I think is important, because the stage, Joe, let me tell you about the stage. We have what was too short of a match, but man, did we see the Workhorsemen maximize their minutes here against FTR. I hope they run this back with like 12 minutes at least, because this was only a 4-minute match, which was kind of a bummer, but I love that this was starting to feel like NWA in the mid 80s or something, when you have someone like Anthony Henry and JD Drake in the ring with FTR. JD Drake's moonsault at the size that he is ridiculous. It's so much fun to watch. For him to be able to do a moonsault and then lay in chops the way that he does is incredible to me. Anthony Henry is just an absolute beast in there as well. Really, really strong dude. Really well conditioned, but I love these guys. I've been rooting for them for a long time. I think they're such a fun duo. A lot of people were saying, like, I want to see more of them, which I think was what this match was supposed to accomplish. If you're going to give them 4.5 minutes or whatever, the goal is like, who are those guys? I want more. I would like to see more of them specifically with FTR. I feel like we were just scratching the surface of what these teams can do to each other. But Alex Pulowski said on Fightful Select, to put him over for a second, like, JD Drake is like, I can't see them where the muscles of your body are that are supposed to allow you to move like that. Like he had said, like, with Keith Lee, you can see the muscles on his body and like where they allow him to move the way he does. With JD Drake, he's just like this big, hard-hitting son of a bitch. And so it catches you almost even more off guard in a really fun way. You're just like, how does this guy pull this off? So wish we had gotten to see more of it. Very happy to see them get some screen time. I love those two. I'll forever be in their corner. They're great. Any thoughts on this tag match?
I'm hoping that all the people who were disrespectful to the Workhorsemen when they announced the match changed their minds after watching it, because all the people who said, no, who are these guys? Why are they facing FTR? What have they done? Like, I hope they realized that this team is legit. It has a long history. And my God, like, Dax took so many chops.
Yeah,
like,
and they are,
oh my gosh,
they are chops, man, dude. Like, those are some hard hitting chops from JD Drake. It was fun to watch them lay it in on each other for these few minutes. It was definitely a fun sprint. I hope more people check them out, but it was really rewarding to hear some holy shit chants break out. Like, for them to go from who are these guys to holy shit chants in the matter of 4 minutes is an impressive feat, in my opinion. So makes me very, very happy that they got to do this. And then afterwards, we get Aussie Open. You can do it. Ryan can't. We get them coming out. Kyle Fletcher with some Jonathan Taylor Thomas hair stylings in this, with some fancy waiter suit, but they come out to make it official at Wrestledream to talk their shit. Very, very excited to see that happen in Seattle. My only thing with this is the booking doesn't make sense from the perspective of they lost the ROH titles and then they lost to Jericho and Sammy, who ended up splitting up anyway. So I don't like the booking train that got us there. They do have a history. They have fought for the New Japan titles before. I feel like they're leaning on that maybe a little bit too much. There's just some very, very easy adjustments they could have made in the booking on the way there, but I'm not going to be mad about them running it back in Seattle. This is going to be great. I am pumped.
Yeah, I think they should probably. I think I'd like to see them take the belts off of FTR.
Yeah.
Being to quote Dax, the sacrificial lambs to some of those random pairing of the teams like MJF and Adam Cole and Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, when they shouldn't have been losing to those people as single wrestlers in a tag team.
Sure.
But yeah, it does kind of feel like the AEW tag team belts are kind of like a consolation prize based on how they booked it. So that's a little bit odd.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. And to lose to Sammy and Jericho was so weird, because if they were going to split up anyway, why did they win that match, right? Like, you could have just had the dissension fall on the two of them. So I never liked the you lost, so you're moving up the card thing. That feels weird, but would love to see Aussie Open come out with the W there. I was really thinking, FTR is going to drop it to the returning Proud and Powerful. Like, that just made so much sense to me, but they're not working together. So moving it to Aussie Open, the next generation, I think is a really, really cool idea. I can't even say that because Mark Davies is like not as young as Kyle Fletcher, but Kyle Fletcher is 24 years old. That's insane to me. These Brits, man, they start at like 12. It's absolutely insane. So it's a whole bunch of...
Aren't there child labor laws over there?
I think so. Because I kind of was like, I had researched, just like I've been on such a Brit rest kick, like ZSJ started at 14. Well, Ospreay started as a kid. And it sounds like it's just a cultural thing of like, it's like an after school club over there. Like, you go to wrestling and you go home, and then, but it's proper training. So it's interesting, but I think you're still not allowed to technically like be a wrestler until you're 18, but you can start training earlier. But I was watching, like, I think it was like, was it Pete Dunne and Walter on the Indies? And like a young Kyle Fletcher, like, he's so old now, but is like sitting there in the front row. You can see him. I'm like, my God, he's a baby. But they were mentioning that he was training already. It was unreal. I think it might have been Tyler Bate. It was fun. It's really quite impressive, and it makes sense when you hear about like how bought in you hear people are to Rev Pro and WXW and like the European scene right now. It's great. It sounds like it's in a really, really healthy place. So makes me happy. But you know what else makes me happy?
What, Kate?
I would have been happy if they mummified Bryan Danielson and put him in a Zorb ball. I really would. I feel like that would be very reasonable based on what we have coming up in Seattle. But Bryan Danielson said, no, my mostly healed arm and the rest of me are dragging out there for a death match with Ricky Starks. Holy heck. Now, I got to say, Bryan Danielson had to win this, and he had to win the last one because it was his return match. They got to start getting Ricky Starks some W's, though. Like, right the frick now. He needs to have the wins to match how important he feels on the program. I get that he had to win this going into the match with ZSJ, and I also get that, like, he should beat the hell out of Danielson the way that he did, because I think maybe Zack Sabre Jr. goes over, just because I don't think Danielson has anything to gain, and I think ZSJ probably does have a lot to gain in that situation, especially with Danielson having beat Okada clean. Like, I feel like that could do a lot for Zack Sabre Jr. and his international title reign. But man, oh man, was the outcome almost inconsequential here, because they beat the dog shit out of each other in this. The Psycho knee with the chain wrapped around it was obviously insane. This is just really fun. Like, Ricky is technically a heel, but he's so over. Danielson was a heel when he went away, but he's so over. So you kind of have these characters that are you both really loved right now, but both technically supposed to be bad guys. Like, I don't know if Danielson is, but the rest of his tribe certainly is, right? So I think it's really fun when that stuff almost doesn't matter to me. Like, it's really, really cool to see that, but this was great. Having Nigel on commentary is such a gift. Like, him just holding decades of grudges against Bryan Danielson is such a blast. That clam digger Danielson will pop me everything. It's so good. It's so good. And then on the next collision, we have Zack Sabre Jr. on there. So you're going to get Dragon Bullocks over and over again, and him getting called a dickhead and Darling along with a clam digger and all these other things that Nigel calls him. I think it's going to be so
I want Nigel. I hope Nigel calls that match.
He's got to, right? I mean,
yeah.
He's got to. He's going to be in the area anyway. I feel like he's got to be out there for it. But what a main event that we had here. Bryan Danielson, man, I said this the other day. Like, I just feel like when he is done, how many times are we going to look back at something and say he did it the best? Like, he had arguably the best strap match of all time with Ricky Starks, or at least one that is at a top 3. Like, how many times are we going to be saying that about all the different types of matches that he's wrestled? I'm sure we're going to get one of the best technical wrestling matches in the world in history, right? Next on like this upcoming Sunday. How many like WrestleManias are as special as WrestleMania 30 because of the work that he did? Like, he's just an unbelievable legacy to this business. And it's so special to be able to recognize that in real time. And I think we have that more than ever, maybe in wrestling, or at least since I've been a fan, where you're realizing that we have legends that are performing at a very high level, even right now. I think Samoa Joe's now back in that conversation. It's just really, really cool. It's a really special time to be a wrestling fan, but what a main event. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, people use the phrase generational talent too much nowadays as a buzzword, but like, seeing Danielson and what he's done in basically 3 phases of his career, from like the early independent ROH time, he was on top of that. He went to NXT, WWE. He wasn't supposed to be on top. He ended up finishing on top at WrestleMania 30, like you said, like the pinnacle. And then he went out and never knew if he was going to come back. Came back like he didn't miss a beat. Back on top again.
And so his champion run was fucking brilliant. Like, it's so good.
So like, to be like the best in the game for those 3 separate time periods of your career, or phases of your career, I mean, that's impressive enough as it is. And I think that makes, if the strap match didn't make Ricky Starks even more of a made man like this match did. And I'm glad they can at least build upon the fact that, like, he hasn't been pinned yet. He hadn't tapped out to Bryan yet. So he still has that toughness card that he can play, that he's still a bad mofo. So that's a saving grace. Even though he's lost these last couple matches, he can still go back to back and hopefully, build some more wins, and then not be stuck in the typical Ricky Starks pattern that they've had him stuck in before.
Agreed. And I think part of that is just, right, like CM Punk abruptly exited the picture, and they also had a title that people were fighting for on Collision, whether it was recognized or not. So now it's kind of like, okay, what do we do with our top heel if he's not going to be chasing the title? Bryan Danielson, who better to step into that role and make Ricky stay feeling important at the top of the card, even in defeat. Now it's time for Ricky to stay important at the top of the card in victory, I think. So let's get him in a meaningful program where he can get some W's, but a very, very strong Collision. I was very happy to see it. We are going to skip through our commercial break shenanigans, Joe, as long as you're good. Do you need to run to the bathroom? Do you need a water? Are you good?
I don't. Do we need to talk about how people can support women and also the Mark Order podcast?
Joe, I'm so glad you asked, because you can support the Mark Order podcast, and it's being anchored right now by me, i.e., a woman. Okay. So if you want to support the Mark Order podcast and women, go to prowrestlingtees.com and head over to the Mark Order store, where we have 4 beautiful designs that you can choose from. We recommend all 4. I can't recommend all 4 enough. I would recommend all 4 and get it both in your regular size and then maybe a size up, just so you have like a cozier version. Maybe it's winter time's coming around. Like, I always put on a couple pounds in the winter. I feel like you're going to want that bigger size. So you're going to want to order 8 t-shirts on the Mark Order podcast store on Pro Wrestling Tees. And if you don't do that, you don't support women. Clearly, We've got the OG logos on here. We've got the double-sided, which is my favorite. I love the pocket design with the cool back, but we really do sincerely appreciate it. This helps us pay our dues for the hosting platform that we're on, StreamYard, for all of those other things, for getting your stickers back out there when those eventually get rebooted. All the money goes right back into the show. So on a sincere level, the more that you can support us and women, the better. We do appreciate it. And we also just encourage you to follow us on social media at Mark Order Podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and all socials. And our link tree is always in our bio to our other social media sites and that t-shirt store that we were just referencing.
I think we also want people to probably subscribe to the YouTube channel, right? Beyond the people who are always here every week with us, who are faithful.
I'm so glad you mentioned it. Because it would be great if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please, if you can get the subscriptions and those likes up, that is unbelievably helpful. Likes help people find us in the algorithm. The subscriptions help us out tremendously. And the more watch hours, the closer we get to monetization. And the more subscribers we get, the closer we get to monetization as well. So all those little things, they are a lot of asks, but none of them are time-consuming asks. They help us out a whole bunch. So if you can subscribe, that would be just the best. We would very, very much appreciate it. And we would also encourage you to check out the other shows on the Shining Wizards Network, including the Shining Wizards podcast. They're on every Monday night. This show was started because of Matt, even though he left us in the dust to go work and do a job of his. We do appreciate him and all the other great shows on the Shining Wizards Network. We normally have a commercial block that we play. We're going to skip over it today because it's just me and Joe. I don't have access to the commercial block. I'm not going to make Joe, who just joined us, try and figure it out. And quite frankly, I'm enjoying moving the show along, my friend. We're going to go through Dynamite pretty quickly because boy, oh boy, it was a talk episode.
I was just sorry to interrupt, Kate. I was just thinking, is Matt like the Cody of the network, where he was on the Shining Wizards Network? So, like, let's say that's the WWE.
Sure.
He comes and helps start this upstart full of these, handful of wild kids, and and this is all in
young independent talent,
right?
Yeah.
And then once that's established, and they have their own following, he jumps back ship to the corporate gig.
I think you're right. I think he's the American Nightmare, Matt Bowman.
Whoa. Oh. Sorry, you're connecting the dots.
There you go. I think that's an extremely apt comparison. And I think he should dye his hair obnoxiously blonde now because you said that. So.
Yeah, I mean, he has Nelly instead of Pharaoh.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think Cody has like 3 dogs and he's got like 3 cats. So well played. Well played.
Well, talking about numbers, Dynamite had 4 matches.
It did have 4 matches. I was just going to say, and Rhea and Brandy are like both respectively out of both of their leagues. So I think that's fair. Continues. It continues. But yeah, we had 4 matches and a lot of chit chat. And one of those matches included Jeff Jarrett. So that's barely even a match, but it is what we start off with Dynamite. What were your overall thoughts? Because I think even though it was extremely talk heavy and extremely go homey, there's some really, really good stuff. We're going to talk about the Adam Cole injury in a little bit, but I thought they pivoted from it nicely. What did you think overall of Dynamite tonight?
Yeah, it was, overly promo talky, but like at the same time, you're coming off of a big show at Grand Slam. You're building towards you have to still finish the build to WrestleDream. You have talent that are obviously banged up, whether they're coming out of concussion protocol, whether they're breaking ankles, whether they're, doing X, Y, or Z. So, having a Dynamite where it's not so wrestle heavy is probably a good thing, considering we still have Rampage and Collision. So yeah, I don't feel like they do it a lot where it's this limited of matches and more, talk time. So, every now and then I'm okay with it.
Every now and then I get a little bit talking. That was for Ryan. It just feels weird when there's no singing and puns on here. So
that's fair.
We are going to start off, though, with Rey Fenix and, of course, Alexandra Hantes at ringside defeating Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett, realistically, Sanjay, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh for a retention of the international title. This was everything that annoys me about Jeff Jarrett. To be honest, this was filled with interference after interference after interference. Only Aubrey did anything when she stopped Karen. But Jarrett getting a couple near falls in this. Phoenix coming out with the victory, though, I got to be honest, at the end there, it didn't look like he was necessarily in great shape. Kind of felt like he might have hurt himself in this, but he does get the win here with the low drop kick, catching Jarrett with a small package flash pin. He was clutching that knee, though, and it looked like for realsies. However, a lot of wrestlers are really good at selling their injuries in ring now, and I hate it. I mean, good for them, but it's brutal. What were your thoughts on our opening match tonight, and why Jeff Jarrett? Why?
I hope Phoenix were just selling, because that guy needs to catch a break, and not the kind of breaks that he usually catches. So
Agreed.
hopefully it was just selling. But yeah, Double J, just good old Jeff Jarrett just finds a way to like shoehorn himself into matches randomly. I don't know what the point is of the whole like his faction of what they do. And then Aubrey is, I mean, if I was Jarrett, wouldn't I argue that, you know, Aubrey shouldn't be the ref due to conflict of interest? Because, I mean,
Yeah, because she
you've had a match against her. Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel
100% agree.
I would not want that to be my referee, but, you know,
Yeah,
continuity.
no. Didn't need any of this at all.
I mean, the leg issue for Phoenix, though, whether it's a sell or if it got hurt or whatever happened, I think it did help make the match a little bit more, since the styles were so different between Jarrett and Phoenix, that like it kept Phoenix more grounded. So I think that it helped the pacing, and like it helped them mesh together a little bit better.
Ray Phoenix, obviously, luchador, brilliance. Jeff Jarrett, a different style in that he's bad and boring. So just very different styles.
He's not the greatest luchador of the 80s.
No, he is not. Shout out to Tony Khan, though, who tweeted that he's held 85 championships today, which made me laugh and barf at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So we move along to a lot of not matches here, but a lot of really fun stuff, including maybe the biggest return of all time. You thought it was Edge at Royal Rumble. You thought it was CM Punk. No. The return of Captain Insano, Joe. My goodness, we get the brochachos out on a fishing excursion. They're having some drinks and fishing, and MJF brings up how Adam Cole was just too busy with Roddy Strong to come out to the ring with him. And Cole levels with him and says, look, Roddy is like a brother to me. And MJF kind of understands this. And when he goes for a beer, he also puts on the Dynamite diamond ring, which I love. And then wouldn't you know it, whilst they're fishing, they catch something. And what do they catch? But it's Captain Insano. Paul White doing a great job here with this silly little thing. What a hysterical decision to do this. I popped tremendously. This was so funny. And we kind of closed with the three of them drinking their beers on the dock, man. This was so silly and so much fun. I've been so impressed by how both MJF and Cole have been able to balance all of the ridiculousness with moving forward what is actually kind of like a very sincere story, right? Of MJF discovering friendship and trust and love, and kind of for the first time not being a scumbag. Still our scumbag, but not being one. Very, very hard to strike that balance for some performers, but MJF and Adam Cole knocking this out of the park. Huge pop for Captain Insano coming back here. What a blast of a little vignette. Your thoughts on this?
Well, before I get into my thoughts, I figured we should...
Everybody stop.
There you go.
Hi, Jesse Ozog. Thank you so much for joining us. Your thoughts?
I'm glad they got used out of the Captain Insano gear that was rumored to have been made for was it made over for All In initially?
Yes.
And then, so I'm glad they got used out of it, and I'm glad they brought back these little brochacho vignettes because they're always so fun.
They're so funny. I hope they continue them while he's injured because they're hysterical.
Right. And I I like the fact that it's subtle, but like Cole, like everyone knows like how much of a heel Cole can be. So like he can automatically go to that like weird sadistic place in his head and like know what Max is thinking or like would do. Like when he said like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna hit me with the dynamite ring and knock me off the boat." Like for him to be able to like, go to that place where Max goes, just like it's a nice little reminder of like what kind of heel Adam Cole was. So I like that part, that little chess game between the two.
And let's not forget, months ago when this all started, the beginning of the story was Adam Cole outsmarting MJF the whole time, right?
Mhm.
So he was always a step ahead of Max. Sometimes he ended up getting the better of him in the end, but I really liked it. Like, I thought that was fun.
And then, you know, we'll talk about here in the next couple segments or whatever, but with the introduction of Captain Insano, I wouldn't be upset if Captain Insano was like MJF's partner.
That
just
would be
saying.
really funny. That would be, and he doesn't do anything except one big man spot. Like, that could be so much fun. Yeah, no, this was a blast. This was a blast, and we're going to talk about this more in a little bit because neck health does come back into play as well as ankle health, unfortunately, for Adam Cole. But before we get there, we're honored to talk about the wonderful, beautiful, incredible, marvelous Renee Paquette, who is in the ring with the dastardly Don Callis and Konosuke Takeshita. And the boos are raining down for these guys. When you are there live, it is deafening. It is absolutely bonkers. But they eventually bring out Sammy Guevara, and Callis throws it to footage of Takeshita and himself at Kota Ibushi's dojo. We see Takeshita bringing down a trainee before Ibushi steps in. Callis attacks Ibushi with the umbrella, and then Ibushi starts to fight back. Takeshita is blindsiding him from behind with a kettlebell shot that looked so nasty. So I love the footage here. And then we get Sammy Guevara coming out and saying that Jericho is the one who was actually the villain in this whole story, that he was holding him back for years. All he's been trying to do is get away, and that Don Callis helped him to do that. And Callis sets up the sixth man at Wrestledream in the best way possible, and that is by saying that they already took everything that they could from Kenny, which I loved. And then he says that, you know, by God, Ospreay is coming back for this. I loved when he would call Kenny by God Omega. So for him to be calling him Will by God Ospreay popped me huge. A lot going on in this segment, but we're starting to see the Don Callis family start to round out a little bit. Your thoughts on this?
I thought it was a little long, it felt like to me, because there's so much going on with them showing the video package of them in Japan, and then having, you know, the talking segments between Sammy and Don. But yeah, I felt like I was expecting some kind of interruption or run in or something to like interrupt them, but it never came. But I'm intrigued to see if the family, if Don fosters more family members.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see if Will Ospreay shows up in this on Saturday for a setup segment, because they'll all be in Seattle, obviously. So I think that might be where we start to see the rest of that segment get rounded out. But we move on to, you're not going to believe this, more talking. We get post-match comments from Ricky Starks after Collision and his death match with Bryan Danielson. Wheeler Yuta interrupting him and saying it was wrong that he put his hands on Starks post-match, but Starks is an entitled prick who's always pissing and moaning about everything, which I kind of loved. Yuta challenging Starks to a match at Wrestledream, and Tony Khan has made it official. Wheeler did really well in this promo. I don't know if it's the backstage format. I don't know if it's the content of it that was better, but this was one of the more natural sounding promos from him. I love Wheeler. I think he's great. Some people are sour on him, but I think he's perfectly suitable. I think he's great in the ring and a decent enough promo, but this was like a good promo, and I love him saying that Ricky's kind of always complaining, because Ricky kind of always is complaining. He does so artfully and in a way that I really like hearing Ricky complain, but he's kind of always pissing and moaning, Joe.
Yeah, and I don't hate the idea of him having to go through Wheeler and then maybe go through face of Moxley again or Claudio again and kind of go through the BCC again.
Yeah, I don't hate that, and I also don't hate the idea of the BCC working Collision. Like, if they're able to do that, I know Moxley, I think strategically, maybe when CM Punk was still there, really booked out those Saturdays on the Indies, so darn it, he couldn't be available, but maybe with a little bit more of a copacetic locker room, they'd be willing to, or, sporadic dates. It's not like the entire Blackpool Combat Club has to be there every single Saturday, so I'm with you. I would love to see Ricky kind of continue to work through the Blackpool Combat Club. And as someone who said, like, Ricky needs some wins, I think this is a really easy way to get him a win, right? Like, he could win against Wheeler and Claudio could come attack him or whatever.
Do you have Ricky break apart from Big Bill finally? I mean, is there a purpose for them to still be together?
I think Big Bill working as his heavy is still good enough. Like, I think that could be fun. It's, especially against the Blackpool Combat Club, like, you're not going to have the same numbers game, but you can have Big Bill take out some of these guys, right? Like, Wheeler's such a small dude. So I'm okay with that pairing. It is tricky, though, because it seems like when Punk exited, they set a reset button on a lot of stuff, and Ricky's, like, I'm a manager thing was just kind of, like, underway and getting going. So I don't know. It feels like Big Bill and Brian Cage have needed to find tracks to be on, and I'm hoping these are finally the tracks that they're on. But we'll move along to what was a match and not a talking segment, and a real fun one. This had no business being as good as it was. Nick Jackson with Brian Cage and Claudio Castagnoli. I don't know why I said that. Like, of course this was great. Claudio is one of the best wrestlers in the world. Nick Jackson is just phenomenal. And Brian Cage, this is the most interested I've ever been in him, and he can do some really fun stuff in the ring. But
some people call him a machine.
Some people do call him a machine, Joe. I'm glad that you mentioned that. That's a really good point. But this was just like, if you're a PWG fan, this was for you. Like, everybody got their signature stuff in. What I liked about it is it did kind of feel like any of these guys could win at any moment, because what is the international title right now? Like, it got very thrown off course, right? So you're like, oh, Brian Cage has been on the rise. I could see him getting a shot. Nick Jackson doing a little singles program, like losing an international title shot against Ray Phoenix. Sure, side me up. And Claudio kind of, to me, made the most sense because it's Mox who's out, right? That's his guy. He just lost a belt. He's looking for golds again. Like, I thought that was probably where we were going with it, but I had no qualms with Nick Jackson winning. I love seeing Nick Jackson in tag matches, of course, but getting to show out in singles matches, because damn, is he good at this. But this ends with anvil elbows on Cage, leading to the Ricola Bomb, and Jackson flying in with a springboard Hurricane Rana that sends Castagnoli to the floor and stealing the pin on Cage. Really, really, really fun match. Like, this was just everybody's strengths getting highlighted. I have no problem with Nick Jackson winning this. I think this was a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah, it was just like, when I saw on the card, I'm like, this is a really random pairing of, like, individuals and for a shot at an international title match, especially with Nick Jackson there. I'm like, I thought that kind of odd, knowing that they're also working as a tag team, like trying to get back as a tag team title shot. But yeah, I love, like, seeing Claudio swing Cage will never not be impressive to me.
Out of control. Out of control how strong that guy is. Like, he's just, I'm so glad he's so settled in AEW, because I feel like we all knew this was inside of him. Like, the fact that he's getting to showcase it absolutely rules.
Well, earlier we talked about how JD Drake is kind of deceptively strong with his physique. Because you look at him and you're like, oh, he's a big guy, but, like, how strong is he? What can he do? Claudio, I feel like the same thing. Like, you look at him, he's tall, he's lean. You don't realize necessarily how strong he really is. Until he's, picks up a 400-pound guy or a 300-pound guy and swings him around.
Swings him. Like, he swung Jericho on top of a steel cage. That's insane to me. I adore Claudio. Like, and you're right. He's so chiseled, but he's kind of on the leaner side in that being chiseled, that, like, you're like, but he can do big boy stuff. And I like
how they've really, like, they've turned the European uppercut that he throws into such a, like, vicious attack where, a lot of people used to use it and it was whatever, but, like, when he hits it, like, it's like a chop. Like, it's just like,
it's gnarly looking. Yeah. It's gnarly looking. It looks like it can fuck you up.
Yeah.
Someone was circulating the other day, like a big men can't do 619s thing. And there's one of Claudio doing a 619, and you're like, holy shit. Because he, like, when you see the 619 and you swing around through the middle rope, it's like that's where the contact happened, but he follows through the middle rope. So it's like swinging all the way back around, and it looks so vicious and intimidating. He knows how to make everything look painful.
I figure if Dominic Mysterio can do one, most of us could probably do one.
He can't do one. He can do like a
618?
a 3, 1, 4.5 or whatever. Yeah, like no, he's so bad. His is like his frog splash, to his credit, has gotten a lot better. He's gotten better in the ring, but that 619 is still rough looking. But I'll tell you what else is rough: the ways of the righteous. Okay, they get this video package here, and I love the righteous. They're dressing MJF and Adam Cole at this point in the night ahead of Wrestledream. Just really good at creepy but accessible, these guys. They say that karma has no deadline and that they've done nothing wrong. And it's easier to forgive your enemies than to forgive your fake friends. Cold line. And really, I love the way these are produced. They're very, 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 very slick. Yeah. Really well done. I think a lot of people look at them and go, eye roll, I don't need another spooky gimmick. I'm not familiar with these guys, but they're really on that line of like nothing supernatural is happening with them. They're just out of their fucking minds. And they kind of have this like Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing. Kind of feels in line with the original like Wyatt family stuff, where it's not spooky from the perspective of anything like outside of real world stuff is happening, but they just make you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And I dig.
They're kind of this whole like new age spiritual, like cultish, like, personalities. So it just, those are sometimes the most terrifying. It's not necessarily the monster with a mask or with an axe. It's the creepy guy who's dressed in white. And
always, yeah, right? It's like more because it feels like they believe they're normal more or something.
Yeah, I'm like, them doing arts and crafts is like, it felt like being at a weird Sunday school.
It did. It did feel that way. I love it. Hey, the chat is lighting up with some people. Thank you guys so much for chiming in. SJ is here. Matthew Hooks is here, who's always so great to us. And our usual standbys. I saw Scott George in there and Jesse Ozog and one LT Photo. We appreciate you guys. And David from the Pro Wrestling Podcast, who has questionable taste in Nickelback opinions, but is a great person. Even made Normus popping in. Thank you guys for popping in. We appreciate you.
Is his questionable opinion like that Photograph is their best song, or?
Photograph might be their best song, actually.
I mean, they all sound alike.
He thinks that Collision should have had their cover of Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting.
No, I'm good.
Thank you. All right, well, buckle in because this next segment is very long, but there's a lot to like about it. We're going to split it into two parts. We're going to talk MJF, Adam Cole, and Roderick Strong, and then we're going to talk MJF and Jay White. So hang in there because there's a lot of talking that happens here, but there's a lot of really good stuff that comes out of it. Essentially, MJF and Adam Cole make their way to the ring. Cole is on crutches and needs surgery is what we find out. That is not a work. That is a shoot. There are pictures of his nasty ass ankle online that Britt Baker posted. They are gross. But essentially MJF says he's not going to forfeit their tag team titles to those freaky deaky douchebags. I really think that there's an opportunity. Now I kind of want your Captain Insano booking, but to slide Roddy into this, I think would be so fun, of Adam Cole just being like a linchpin of like, look, Max, you can't go out there and do it alone. These guys are freaky deaky douchebags. And Roddy, like, if anybody understands how tag team wrestling and ROH works, it's you or whatever. Like, and Adam Cole just being the guy that tries to make his boyfriend and his best friend get along, even though they don't like each other, I think could be really, really fun. And then if they lose, MJF has all the reason in the world to be pissed at Roddy instead of just not liking that his friend also likes him. I think there's a lot of good that you could do with that. And then we get screams of Adam ringing out from Roddy Strong, who is in his hospital gown and wheeled out by Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. He says it's an emergency and that he needs Adam Cole immediately. MJF says Roddy Strong is a simp, but he respects that Cole needs to do what he needs to do, and he'll be waiting for Adam Cole when he gets back. Now, let's pause here and get your thoughts on all of this that happened, and then we'll get into the Jay White stuff.
I am really interested to see what happens with now that Adam Cole can't wrestle for a while. Like, how will they do with their storyline with him and Roddy? Maybe they bond over being injured. And where Max, did Max become like the third wheel and does he feel left out? Or can he trust Adam Cole enough to, if Adam Cole says, hey, let Roddy be your partner, and Max says, okay, fine, I trust you, that it'll be okay. So there are a lot of layers to this, like you mentioned, and I'm interested to see like what was the emergency that they went back to the back of the backstage area for. So hopefully
I can't wait to find out what a not emergency that was. Like, what extremely minor thing is that going to be? It's going to be so much fun. I'm with you on that. I'm with you. I think, how they re-engineer what the stuff with Adam Cole is going to turn into is going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. And also just the severity of his injury. If he has to have surgery, that's probably not a good sign. But like it could vary, right? Like if it's a minor thing, if it's not that invasive, he could be back sooner than later. Or is it like, okay, we have to completely switch gears here. I hope they still continue to do the vignettes regardless. Like, there is absolute gold in MJF pushing his friend around and maybe not trusting him that much, and like, I don't know, maybe like steering the wheelchair too hard to the left real quick and then realizing what he did or whatever. Like, there's so much fun to be had with MJF and wheelchair Adam Cole, especially considering the role model is Adam Cole's baby, right? So
misery, the story of the authors in this wheelchair, and MJF can be Kathy Bates, but
that's right.
Yeah, and then if they don't, I'm interested to see if they beat the Righteous, if MJF beats them, or if you had a tag team partner, like how long they keep those ROH belts in limbo then?
I think Sean speculated, and I agree. Like, there's probably going to be a ton of changes at the next Death Before. Is it Death Before Dishonor? I forget what's up next.
I mean, we're entering a new era here pretty soon.
We are entering a new era. But that next ROH pay-per-view is probably going to be like we're trying to bust the gate. I don't think you want AEW retaining unless they're going to work at ROH, but it's like let's make the new champions of ROH feel like a really big deal by dropping these titles to them thing. So sure. I'm guessing that's the case. But you raise a good point. I had it that MJF and Roddy Strong lose to the Righteous, and MJF has a right to be mad. What happens if Adam Cole sees them win and starts to get really uncomfortable? Like, there's so many things that you can do there.
Roddy and MJF become friends.
Yeah, that could be like, and then the rest of, like Taven and Bennett are feeling weird about it, and Adam Cole is like, there is so much to be done.
Yeah,
Final Battle's the next one. Thank you very much.
Random key party of friendship.
Yeah, and like, God, MJF already has trust issues, right? Like, there's a lot of possibilities. They've done a really good job building out the story that having to call this audible with Adam Cole in it can be whatever. But let's dig into the next piece of this, because boy, is there a lot to dig into. And I thought there was some very effective work done on both sides of this. We get Jay White showing up on Dynamite, and it was night. I'm loving Bullet Club Gold. This was the Jay White that we know and love tonight. Like, there was some really dastardly stuff that came out of Jay White's mouth. And it's just fun because MJF is essentially a face. So we get to see pairings like this that we might not otherwise get to see. But MJF says, if you mess with the king, you better not miss. And calls Jay White's facial hair pubic hair, essentially. Nobody's on the level of the devil. And MJF never gets bothered by comparisons to other greats until he was compared to Jay White, because he is filet mignon and Jay White is tofu, to which I say, as someone that is more recently plant-based, why is tofu catching strays out here? It's a very, very versatile protein that can mimic a lot of things, which I know is your point, but I think you're forgetting how powerful and helpful that is to some people, Max. Okay? But he essentially says that Jay White was handed the keys to the kingdom of the Bullet Club and being their leader, which I thought was interesting because the MJF I know thinks that New Japan is a stupid indie fed. So what's he even doing keeping tabs on the Bullet Club? Thank you very much. But does say that he takes on the flavors around him, but when you take those flavors away, he's just standing alone and super bland. And boy, oh boy, did we get a fun retort here. Jay White saying that MJF seems a bit distracted by his bromance and doesn't think that the crowd loves him as much as they do Adam Cole. What I love about this is he knows that MJF is an insecure little prick, right? Like, he knows that he's insecure in his friendship with Adam Cole, and the only thing he's more insecure than in that is himself and what people think about him. So leveraging both of those I thought was brilliant. He says, since he's their scumbag, and the crowd chants for MJF here, and White silences them pretty well, that if I just love this of him saying like he's their scumbag and basically equating that to the crowd being a bunch of scumbags. Like, he's their scumbag. You know why? Because they're scumbags. I thought was really, really good. If we get MJF saying like my pores in this, which I thought was some of the best trainer work that you could possibly do, because you're still insulting the audience by calling them pores, but they're my pores. I thought was hysterical. But White says that if he didn't temporarily end Adam Cole's career after the first Forbidden Door, maybe MJF wouldn't have had such a hot spot for him. My God. And MJF says his pores will have their scumbag, and White will he says that MJF will have his pores and they will have his scumbag, and that he will have the Triple B and they will enter the Switchblade era. So that was very muddy how I said it, but I really, really, really thought that was such a great punctuation mark on this. Like, have your pores, they can have their hero, I'm going to have the title, and we're going to be moving into a new era. It was very well done, very, very well delivered. I thought there was a ton of fun in this. What were your thoughts?
This was Bullet Club Jay White that we wanted when he came to AEW full time, like you said. Like, and I get that you didn't want to maybe throw him into the World Championship program right away, but yeah, it was so nice to see him be more serious and not the jokey bang bang gang gimmick that they do. And MJF, I mean, to his credit, bless him for being able to get the crowd to chant whatever he wants them to chant, whether it's weed, whether it's pubic hair, whether it's tofu. Like, they eat out of the palm of his hand. It's pretty incredible to see how much influence he has over them. But I was curious to see kind of what would happen with knowing that, you know, the numbers game of the Bullet Club Gold and, you know, MJF on an island now without Adam Cole, what would happen? And, you know, we get some seasons about that later on tonight we'll talk about, but I'm interested to see how long they build this program out. If it's a full gear main event, sign me up. So yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And I'm also noticing like Jay White understands the insecurities MJF has. Adam Cole understood the insecurities that, you know, MJF has. So maybe you have to be like a Bullet Club leader to understand MJF.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a fun little callback. So I agree. I think that's great, and I think you're right. I think what a perfect substitute for a full gear main event, because I'm sure we were headed towards him and Adam Cole. There's a lot of interesting stuff that you can do here of, you know, MJF now being insecure about everything because his brochacho is injured. So, you know, being insecure about Roddy, being insecure about Jay White coming after him. Like, he doesn't have the security blanket there anymore. His friend is unavailable. So I think this is a really fun pivot. And I also feel like you were headed toward they did so much stuff with Jay White and Punk and CMFTR versus Bullet Club Gold that this was a great way to make Jay White continue feel important, because that just sucks. Like CM Punk was feuding with everybody on Collision, so with him dropping out, that makes it really tricky. This was a good re-engineer, and Jay White's really good at this, so you can slide him into an ambiguous title picture and he'll just make it work, which is awesome and impressive. So we move along to, you're not going to believe this, another not a match. Christian Cage and Darby Allin in a sit down here after Cage's huge TNT title win from himself. I loved this. He confused here. He said he retained the title, but he like the confusion around whether he won it or retained it. I just thought was really cutesy here. Man, Christian Cage is really fucking good at this, Joe. I don't know what to tell you. Like, this sit down was great. Him and JR had really good chemistry. Him and Darby Allin had good chemistry. This was the most I've liked out of Darby Allin in a bit. Like, I thought he did good work during the Four Pillars program, but this was fantastic. Cage says that he hopes that he is prepared to let his family down at Wrestledream, and asks Allin if his uncle will be there. I'm kind of skipping ahead to the juicy stuff because holy hell, on Sunday. And then he remembers that his uncle is no longer with us. He is just firing away at every dead relative anybody has. But Darby Allin said everyone Cage talks trash about is dead because they can't fight back, essentially, which I love. He's also not afraid of losing in his hometown. And Cage says, bring your whole family, bring Nick Wayne, bring Nick Wayne's mom. Cage said he will call her since he has her digits, and that he wants Wayne to be there to get revenge, but that won't happen, and that he should leave Lucha. Darby Allin says that won't happen, and that Cage should leave Luchasaurus behind as well. Darby Allin reiterating that he doesn't have a fear of dying and that he's going to be climbing Everest in this. And also, I love kind of where things pop off here. Cage saying that Darby Allin hides behind his face paint, and Darby Allin's like, you think I'm fucking hiding here? And that's kind of when this all breaks down. Christian Cage going from, did I retain my title or did I win it again? Who knows? And I am going to call Nick Wayne's mom as both a comedic beat and I'm needling you thing to, hey, your uncle's dead. Like, his ability to take these things that are very serious, but give them a comedic edge to them so that they don't feel so weighted. And then being able to flip into, like, just great heel work that is drawing out the side of Darby and needling him about the face paint and stuff. Like, this is not easy to do in general, and it's really hard to get conveyed in a sit-down setting. Like, to be able to have, like, these sprinkled hints of comedy that are actually ways to get under the face's skin, and to also be able to just go for the jugular with some shit. Man, that is hard to do in a sit-down interview. Loved Darby's fire in the responses, and I loved him knowing what Christian Cage was trying to do by getting under his skin, and then when it came to the face paint thing, just kind of like popping off and being like, fuck this guy. Like, I thought this was great. I think this is the best use of JR on AEW programming at this stage of his career. He's excellent with this stuff. This was a home run segment to me. And man, oh man, if Darby Allin wins, I gotta assume we're getting Edge showing up. We're getting Adam Copeland here, because if Luchasaurus isn't going to be there and Nick Wayne's not going to be there, if you want to put Darby Allin over in his hometown again, there's one guy who can cause some shenanigans here. It'll be October if that's when the contract is up. Very intrigued to see what comes out of that. But let's talk about your thoughts on the main segment here and what you think might come from this at Wrestledreams.
There are very few people who are as good of a psychological heel as Christian is. I'm trying to remember some other people from the past who were as good as he is with the heel work he does. Because there's no one like him currently where he can be the veteran and have that cachet to get away with saying the stuff he says, and he says it so calmly and just so like intentional, and it's not yelling, it's not it's just like you said, it's very pointed, and that's very that's very special promo work. And I'm looking forward to the match. I'm wondering how long they'll keep, if this will be finally kind of the end of the program between the two, or if they eventually have to have a match for like custody of Nick Wayne because they keep fighting over him. I'm like, what is this, Ray and Eddie from? Like they get the 19-year-old kid.
Well, what was so interesting was like this had kind of started with that whole Swerve program, right? And then they kind of just pivoted it away, and they did so pretty seamlessly. And I feel like a lot of that's also with Christian Cage. Like they did it with the silly connection point of why does Christian Cage keep going after people who have dead dads? But then they turned it into goals here, and I'm loving it, man. This is impressive shit from Christian Cage. Makes me very, very happy. It was funny when you were drawing a comparison. To me, the thing that draws a comparison is on the face side, and that it's Orange Cassidy. I think Orange Cassidy uses his comedic undertones to get under his opponent's skin a lot. And he does it in a sillier way. But like, to me, the kicks are always a mind game. And like all the laziness stuff is often a mind game to piss off your opponent. So
it also pisses off fans. The hardcore.
Well, they're not fans. They're fucking dorks. But you cannot like Orange Cassidy, but people will sit here and be like, he's ruining the business. And then they'll post a clip of like Gold Dust or something. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? But yeah, I loved this. I thought this was a home run. I'm so blown away by the work that Christian is doing at this stage of his career, because it's some of my favorite that I've ever seen of him. And this like second wind has been bananas. But speaking of Orange Cassidy, we move on to him defeating Penta, Matt Jackson, and Austin Gunn. This was a bit of a surprise from a booking standpoint, and another one where I felt like anyone could win, which ultimately made it more exciting. This really kind of settled in when we got back from picture in picture. I felt like the second half of this was stronger. I also felt that way about the women's match a little bit. But almost like the triple threat that we had earlier, like everybody's offense got in. I like that. It feels, wrestling matches are exciting when you feel like anybody could win, and when there's four guys that could win in that situation, it's good. But the finish here is we get Gunn kind of opting out to pose, his arrogance getting in the way of this, and eating a triple super kick in stereo as Jackson and Penta both try for the same offense, which I love because their storied history has so much tandem offense against each other. The fact that they went for it at the same time, I thought was really fun to factor into the end of this. But Gunn trips up Penta, and Cassidy pops Jackson with the orange punt at the end here for the win. Glad they're keeping the Orange Cassidy train rolling after he lost. I know he was so tired, which is very relatable, but I thought this was a whole bunch of fun. Really started to pick up. I felt like this started a little bit slower, but really kind of settled in and just became a giant hoot after that. Your thoughts on this?
The first thing I thought was, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things aren't the same. And that thing with Austin Gunn.
Sure.
Like, you have Orange Cassidy, sure, title holder. Penta, title holder. Matt Jackson, title holder. I guess Austin Gunn had a belt, I guess, but whatever.
He was a title holder. I was just going to say, the thing that actually stuck out to me was all of these guys are in tag teams except for Orange Cassidy, who's in alliance with Hook, right? So kind of a funny thing there, I guess.
But agree, I'm with you. Like, everyone played their roles well. All the super kicks, all the everyone hitting destroyers on one another. That's always fun to watch. I thought maybe they'd give Austin kind of a sneak win where, someone would hit a finisher and he would, push him off and get the pin. I thought maybe he could use it more than the other ones. But the only other thing I had about the match really was what I would prefer some kind of like, stakes or some kind of purpose to it, other than one of these teams, like this one person in his team, is going to have momentum going into Sunday. And I know Sunday's match is obviously for a future title shot, but like I would like something where it's like, maybe the person on the winning team, their team starts the match at, they get some kind of advantage in the upcoming match instead of just, momentum.
Agreed. That's very, very, very understandable. And yeah, would have been a little bit tighter booking. I could see that. I could see that for sure. So we move along to our ladies match now. This was the entire representation of women on the show and was an eighth of the time that MJF had with Jay White and Adam Cole, but still good. This was another one where I feel like the second half clicked in a little bit more than the first, but Julia Hart getting the W going into the pay-per-view on Sunday. Good for her. A good match. Willow had come out with the bandaged up, misted face, and Julia just kind of maniacally looking at her. I thought was a really nice touch. Loved Willow's gear tonight, too. She always has such bright and fun gear, but like the shiny gold, I thought just looked so beautiful on her. But this was fun. You get Nightingale kind of taking out her frustrations in the first part here, right? Like she's clearly unleashing very heavily in the beginning, and Julia Hart kind of playing mind games and getting back in control when we're in the commercial. I thought this was all perfectly good, but Willow getting distracted by Brody King, because dudes can be distractions too. Thank you very much. Taking a little bit long here as she misses the cannonball, getting distracted there. And Julia Hart just nailing this moonsault for the win. I thought she looked great at the end of this. So we will see her against Chris Statlander. And they've done a nice job on commentary of pushing the story about her versus Chris, and that being, the last time that she lost was against Chris in 2022. So good stuff by commentary on that. Your thoughts on our gals tonight?
I like watching Willow with an edge instead of kind of the happy-go-lucky, smiling Willow.
On this day.
Wrong edge. That's Adam now.
Right, yeah, she had an Adam Copeland to her tonight.
Yes, and I like to, I don't know like whether it's her being like one revenge on Julia, or if it's the old black myth that like seeps into you and starts making you feel a little bit more angsty and evil. But I like when she had that extra gear, and Julia, she slowly getting better in the ring, right? Like more reps. And I think the good thing about her character is that she doesn't have to be overly technical with her character that she's doing right now. She can just, do a couple of things to kind of, be sadistic and, gouge the eyes or do some other cheap shot. Like she doesn't have to do a Fujiwara armbar or anything. Like
right.
She can just do. So like seeing the moonsault was great from her. I don't know if I've ever seen that from her yet. And
not like that we haven't.
She just floated. And like she's floated, and then so yeah.
I love Brody coming out with her too. It's such a fun touch.
It is.
Of anybody in that faction to come out with her, like the big bruiser. And he has such a presence about him too, that it's kind of playful. It's a fun little wrinkle that they've added.
Yeah, I think it's nice that role reversal of having a big guy be the heavy to be the valet for the wrestler instead of having Julia be the valet all the time.
Damn right.
So
damn right.
Equality. But yeah, otherwise, right person won. It was a good win over Willow, who's obviously established and is a powerhouse. So being someone like Willow, I think gives Julia that little extra momentum and credibility to go up against Statlander.
Agreed. So we closed the night with our contract signing and what I thought was very fun, but did lean a lot on weather metaphors. So hang in there if you don't like weather metaphors, I guess. But we get Shane Strickland kicking his feet up on this. I love the casual coolness of Swerve in this. And we get him asking Adam Page if he knows what he's walking into on Sunday, because he's walking into whose house, Joe?
Swerve's house?
Nailed it.
Okay.
Nailed it. Well played. You could have said Darby Allin's house. You could have said Dr. Fraser Crane's house.
Ooh.
You could have said Tom Hanks in Sleepless in Seattle's house, but you crushed it. It's Swerve's house. And Adam Page says that he's glad that Swerve said what he said a few weeks ago and that it lit a fire under him. He kind of recaps the past year and a half or so that he's had. He said that he's felt like there's this black cloud hanging over his head, which I kind of love because he's oftentimes a sad cowboy, Joe. That there were moments that the sun would shine, like beating Jon Moxley in that Texas death match and reuniting with the Elite. But every time he started to smile, the cloud would come back out and it would start to rain again. And Strickland just is in stitches about this. He said that it is about as pathetic as Russell Wilson and the Broncos last week. And that's pretty pathetic if you follow football or if you don't.
Not wrong. Yeah.
Oh boy, that is pathetic. But he also dives into this, and I love him saying, like, what is a buckshot to kill shot? What is a cowboy to a mogul? Like, really, really laying into that stuff was good, but also saying that he thinks he has mental problems because he just makes a new enemy out of whoever he sees. He has a new enemy every day. And he says that he is not even like Hangman that he has an issue with. He would do this to anybody in Page's position, which I also loved. Like, because Swerve makes things so personal, he's like, it's not personal because of who you are. It's personal because of the position you're going to be in, because that's how a mogul would think, I feel like. So I really, really liked those subtle details. And he reminds him that it rains an awful lot in Seattle. And I love that this ends with Page stabbing Swerve with a pen and security separating these two guys. I just thought that was clever. I don't remember seeing that in a wrestling contract signing before, to just start stabbing the guy with the pen. I thought was pretty well done. All in all, a strong go-home segment, especially on such a talky episode, to get more talking and it still feel compelling. I thought they did a really, really good job here. This was great. I thought this was a whole bunch of fun. It did the job of making me feel excited for what's around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to figure out why I should care about this match. What's the big, the poll? And Jesse mentioned, asked like, what are they fighting for? And I think this promo helped kind of explain that, Swerve sees Adam Page having a spot and not fulfilling his duties, and he wants to take that spot from him.
That simple. I really like that, of like, hey, you don't have a title, but you're obviously a top dog around here, and I'm the top dog around here now.
The real crime was Swerve not letting Nana dance.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I can't believe that wasn't in my notes, because there's no better way to get heel heat right now is to have Nana not do the dance. My God. What a cruel, cruel thing.
To deprive the people of the dance is just
so wrong.
Right.
So wrong.
But yeah, and then seeing Heyman stab Swerve, I mean, it's not very face-like, but it at least drew out the animal instinct that Swerve said Heyman lost. So I think that made sense.
I agree.
And I don't know if I have any more. I don't know if you have any weather metaphors you can throw out about the segment.
Not really. I think the chances of Hangman winning are mostly cloudy, I would say. Do you have any weather predictions about what Hangman's chances of winning are?
You're thinking cloudy with like
a 30% chance of sun, I would say.
Okay. I'm gonna say 30% chance of winning or 40% chance of winning.
That's what sun is.
Okay.
Keep up.
I don't know your new fancy wrestling terms.
It's weather terms. It's not even.
Let me tell you about cumulus clouds.
That would be really funny if they went very in depth. That they were like, and a cold front's moving in.
El Nino.
That'll be collision. I'll just go a little bit deeper with that, but let's real quick talk your Wrestledream card. And since there's only two of us, let's make some predictions along the way here. You've got Bryan Danielson.
Before we get into that, should we talk about that last closing segment?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, thank you. God, my notes are a little sparse. We get the devil, someone dressed as the devil, taking out a certain somebody with a certain type of injury. That's all I'll say. What did you think of our closing segment here? We get him masked up again, but is it MJF in the mask, I guess, is the real question.
I would assume so. I mean, the last time we saw this was back when he had like FTR in them, right? When he had those the pinnacle help beat up people in the back.
Yes.
So I'm interested to see who if it's MJF, like we all assume it is, like who's helping him.
Right. Who's on
yeah.
the level of the devil? It would be funny if they limped away and it was like very obviously Adam Cole, but in a mask.
I know. I'm like, is it the Kingdom and like Roddy and Adam Cole?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Like, there's a lot of. It could be someone we're not even thinking about right now, right?
Mhm.
But like him being insecure that his brochacho can't help him out and needing to employ someone else, I think is interesting. Or it's just him. Like, there's a lot of interesting possibilities on that. So good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's talk some Wrestledream. We've got a loaded card, and I'll get your predictions along the way here. The big marquee match, at least in my world, and I think to a lot of people, it's finally happening. Bryan Danielson is in the Zorb Ball, confirmed. We also have on Collision, we're going to get Zack Sabre Jr. on commentary, and God, I just cannot wait to hear him be like, Dragon Bullocks! And Nigel will just call him a clam digger over and over again. But Bryan Danielson, Zack Sabre Jr., I really truly feel like it doesn't matter, and I feel like this one really could go either way. But I think there's just so much more to be gained from ZSJ winning. So I'm going with him, dickheads. What are your thoughts?
I think ZSJ. I think it's the time to kind of pass the torch on, and yeah, I think Danielson's not going to lose anything by losing to ZSJ. So, yeah, that's who I pick.
Yeah, especially softened up going into this, right? He had this huge death match beforehand. Like, there's a lot of protection in the loss that he could have. We get Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve. I'm going with Swerve getting the W here. Your thoughts?
Same thing. You have to ask me the question next time, so I'm not copying you. But
that's okay. Greasy's
Swerve needs to win more.
I think Swerve needs to win more. I also could see this being run back a couple of times, and I think the heel getting the win to start and having Adam Page chase and be like very upset is a really fun way to go. You could also get the Hung Bucks versus the Mogul Embassy a little bit more if you wanted to. But you
don't let Swerve lose in Seattle. Come on.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. Get Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, and Kota Ibushi versus Konosuke Takeshita, Sammy Guevara, and Will Ospreay, obviously, with Don Callis there. Your thoughts, and I'll see if I'm the copycat this time.
Oh, I'm taking the Callis family.
I'm taking the Callis family, too. I think it's tough because Kenny's eaten some losses, but I think that's the point, right? Don Callis is just getting the upper hand on him at all times. I do think you're going to want to make Kota look strong soon, but I think you probably have Ospreay getting the pin on someone, probably on Kenny Omega, because they're going to run back that third one on Wrestle Kingdom 3, right? Well, their third match at Wrestle Kingdom, not Wrestle Kingdom 3.
I thought maybe Sammy would get the pin over Jericho to get that back from his loss.
You could do that too, and that would give Sammy a win in a big spot. That's not a bad call at all. I think Will Ospreay is just riding such a high right now. I'm kind of like, keep the Will Ospreay train going, but no problem with that. Sammy Guevara getting the W on Jericho would be great. MJF versus the Righteous for the ROH tag titles. Now, this is interesting because does he do it on his own is what I want to hear from you first. If not, who is his tag partner, and what do you think the results are here?
I think he starts on his own initially, and I think someone will come down and help him, whether it's a Roddy or someone from the Kingdom or something. I think that's, like you mentioned, I think that has a lot of interesting threads to the story. And I think they do hold on to him. I think they retain.
Okay. I think you're right, because I think those titles are going to drop at Final Battle would be my guess. I love the Righteous, but I don't think this is the moment for it. I do think it might be the moment for Aussie Open. That would make me very, very happy. This one I honestly feel like could go either way. But the FTR versus Aussie Open matches, I think, going to be right up there with Danielson and ZSJ as far as just like gonna blow your mind kind of matches. I'm going Aussie Open here just because my heart wants it. I think this one really could go either way, though. What are your thoughts?
I'm going Aussie Open. I don't know. I mean, I feel like FCR's had the belts long enough where they've done a lot of what they could do with them. So I think giving them to Aussie Open to let them run with it's fine. FCR is a tag team that's solidified. They don't need a championship belt to carry any weight with any match they have. So give them to Aussie Open.
I'm with you. I think that would be very refreshing for the tag division. Chris Statlander versus Julia Hart. I do think someone comes out after this, but I think this is probably a slam dunk W for Chris Statlander. Your thoughts?
Same. I don't know I'm with you on Statlander. So who comes out?
Mariah May, maybe, or Thunder Rosa. I think Thunder Rosa is cleared and good to go. I think probably you want to keep Rosa away from Saraya for the time being. But I think Rosa coming back and saying, I had to forfeit my last title. I'm here for this one could be a very fun way to get her back in the mix. Stardom does have an event. Otherwise, I would say maybe Julia as well. Giulia. Julia, not Julia Hart. Eddie Kingston Partner versus Katsuyori Shibata. I think Eddie's just getting started here, and it's only his titles on the line and not Shibata's pure title on the line. So a little bit of a tip of the hand of the booking here, but I think this is going to be just a special and legendary match. Eddie Kingston stepping up here. Your thoughts, partner?
I mean, it's not a question. I mean, Eddie's going to retain. We need a good long run with him as a champion.
Yes, we do. Christian Cage versus Darby Allin for the TNT title in a 2 out of 3 falls match. A lot of openings for shenanigans and such a thing. I am going to call my shot and say that we do see the debut of Adam Copeland. I'm trying to determine which side it's on. Does he help Christian Cage and Darby loses in his hometown? This is tough. I'll let you go first and then decide if I want to copy you.
It is tough. I'm gonna go Christian. I already have Swerve winning in the hometown, so I'm gonna go Christian wins. Add more heat to him, and build. We still have a lot more story left with fighting over Nick Wayne, and then if you want to throw Adam Copeland in the mix if he comes around, so. Yeah, there's a lot more story with Christian winning the belt, and Darby's had the belt numerous times already. So,
yeah, and if he's going away to climb Mount Everest, I think maybe you don't need to do another short Darby Allin reign. But Christian retaining feels right. I think he'll probably lose once the dinosaur goes away from him, and I think we have a longer burn on that. I do think Adam Copeland shows up. I don't know if it's after to challenge him or during this, but that's my hopes is that he's there. Get the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson versus the Guns versus Orange Cassidy and Hook versus the Lucha Brothers for a future AEW tag title shot. I have no idea who the heck wins this. I'm guessing if you have Aussie Open win, maybe you do the Bucks here. But they're already your ROH Trios titles holders.
You're doing the deduction that I'm doing in my head, so I landed on Orange Hook.
We're doing the same math here, huh? I think the Guns would be a fun, easy slam dunk defense probably for Aussie Open. I think you do want to keep Orange Cassidy hot though, so I'm tempted to go with that. Lucha Brothers, you're just never going to have a bad match, so there are some interesting possibilities here. I don't think you put Orange Cassidy and Hook to not win it, though, right? They're alliances and not a tag team. I don't like it, but I feel like that's why they did this.
Right. They're too new to not have them put in a place to push. and they can face Aussie Open or FTR or whoever and lose. But yeah, I have them winning.
And we get Ricky Starks versus Wheeler Yuta. I think this is a good way to get Ricky a quality win. Your thoughts on that one?
Same. He needs a win, like we talked about earlier, and Wheeler can continue to get beat up by Claudio and Brian in the dojo, but Ricky will win. And I don't know where Ricky goes from here, but we'll see.
We will see. We will. Well, that brings us to kind of the end there. A couple of things in news and notes. Fightful Select reported earlier today that Jon Moxley was supposed to appear at Wrestledream. And because of the injury and the weird outcome of that match, that's obviously not the case. The title landed on Ray Phoenix, who, man, AAA does not have a good working relationship with New Japan, even when they're not contracted there. It's not a good way to go. Now, I will say, our own Matt on the Bread Club did reveal that it was supposed to be Shibata who came out. I have heard that from one person who I find reliable, so I don't like saying anything officially or reporting anything, actually, just in general. But especially when there's not two people that have verified it, but I have no reason to believe otherwise. That it was supposed to be Shibata that came out and challenged Jon Moxley for a match at Wrestledream. That's obviously not the case here, right? So that is how Eddie Kingston probably ended up in that picture partner, which I'm not mad about at all. I'm very excited to see that match. There were also several talents on the roster who said that they like Rick Knox, but there was a lot of heat on him for what happened there. We were there live, and it was very obvious that Jon Moxley was fucking pissed. Because this is the second time, at least, that something like that has happened, and both cases were bad, right? Like, the wrestler was not protected, even though he was clearly injured, and the outcome didn't change. So, not great stuff there. But yeah, I don't know if you have any comment on that.
No, there's a reason why Rick Knox only really referees the Bucks matches. Like, he doesn't need to. He's had way too many slip-ups.
Yeah, it's not great, and it's rough when it's a situation like this. Like, it's not great when it happens ever, because you're just supposed to count through the pin, right? AEW Dark is one thing. Doing it here is a whole other one, because it had some really, really bad implications. So,
and for a guy who's been an official for so long, who's had that much experience, you should automatically know what you're doing with, like, you count 3, and you can always fix the booking later on. Agreed.
Some Serena Deeb news came out that there are a couple of sides to, so I'm going to give you what was reported, and you can draw your own conclusions about things. But Deeb had told people that she was working with a serious injury and working to get cleared, but there were also sources that said she had some serious disagreements with management that led to her being off television. Play me off, why don't you? She claimed that there were people cutting time for matches without letting her know until they got to the ring, which sounds pretty common in wrestling. But that there were producers and coaches in wrestling companies that don't relay match times all the time until they're, like, absolutely finalized. So just kind of a weird thing to get upset about. I had also heard other rumors that have to do only with her personal life and nothing to do with anything on AEW. You can speculate wildly on what those are. That is not anything that's been reported, and only things that I've heard through, like, third-hand stuff. But
either way,
great.
it sounds like we probably won't be seeing Serena for around AEW anytime
soon. It certainly does not seem to be the case. There was another thing that I wanted to talk about. Where is it? As I scroll through my notes. Where did it go? So much happens in a wrestling week.
A lot more than you would think.
So much happens in a wrestling week. It's insane. What was it? Was it about neck health? It was probably about neck health.
Well, neck health, yeah, it's 24/7, 365.
Yeah, obviously.
How is your neck, by the way, while you look at your notes?
Thank you so much. My neck is It's doing well.
Okay.
It's doing well today.
Okay.
I think because I had my brace. Thank God. Maybe I didn't. Oh, I did want to open up the floor. That's what it was. WWE made some releases that we can kind of talk about. And we don't have to, I don't like speculating on like, hey, these people lost their jobs. Let's fantasy book them. But there are some obvious value adds to the roster, and that Mustafa Ali was released. Dolph Ziggler was released. Mansois and Massey were released. I feel like those are kind of the biggest ones. Matt Riddle's obviously unbelievable in the ring, but he's obviously a fucking idiot as well. So I don't think AEW is going to be trying to pick him up anytime soon. Some NXT releases, a couple that were requested. I know Lisa Leone had requested her release, and that was confirmed. Never a good day when people lose their jobs. Tenille Dashwood and Riddick Moss were on that list as well. To me, Dolph Ziggler is one of the most underrated, undervalued people. I know it was like a joke with him at this point. Did we talk about Jade Cargill last week? No, we didn't.
Not it wasn't official, so I mean,
I was at the pay-per-view,
right.
or I was at, so I didn't know if you guys did, but
we might touch on it a little bit, but not
we can touch on that too as we're talking about this talent swap. But Dolph is like, if you want him to come in, he can lead a stable, he can hold a mid-card title, he could be a pinfall guy and make everybody look great. Like, to me, he's kind of a no-brainer if it's something he wants to do, to be on weekly episodic wrestling television again. But to me, like, the biggest W of all this has got to be Mustafa Ali. Like, that guy is unbelievably skilled at every aspect of this. He is a star that they just did not crown for whatever reason. I think they are fucking idiots for the way they used him. And I try not to like go down that rabbit hole too much. Like, there's some obvious ones that you're like, how did they miss on that guy, right? Like Miro. Like, how did you miss on Miro? Malachi Black, obviously, like from a performer perspective, is incredible. Mustafa Ali, I'm like, come on, man. Like, this is ridiculous. Swerve's a great example, too. Swerve was, like, one of the weirdest releases that they had. But Mustafa Ali, I'm just like, he's been so good at everything they asked him to do. When he was doing Positive Ali, when he was making sense of Retribution, when he was wrestling on 205 Live, his matches on 205 Live, one of them has 6 million views and another one has 5 million views. Nobody gives a fuck about 205 Live, but people went back to watch that shit. This guy, to me, is the W to get on the free agent market. I would also like to see him do work in New Japan, but Mustafa Ali showing up on Collision and saying, you had the wrong Chicago guy the whole time. Fuck yeah. Bring it on. I want to see that guy on AEW television. And obviously there's a ton of people there, Buddy Murphy being the top one that he has history with. Any thoughts on those guys or anybody else that you'd like to see on AEW television?
So Ali, definitely AEW, New Japan. I think, with their working relationship, he can do both. And Ali doing like G1 would be great.
Oh my God, best of the Super Juniors? Are you fucking kidding me?
So, and yeah, like you said, like 205 Live is one of those things that like people really didn't appreciate in the moment. But now it's like it has that cult following when you go back and watch it and see like how many stars were really wrestling at that time in that division that were
unreal,
that the WWE didn't know how to use. So yeah, him, Ziggler, I think he's a no-brainer to AEW, especially with some of the teases and BTE and things like that, and his relationships with people. I think he can be I think he can be like, in a sense, he can be a Jericho type of figure, right? So like, great worker, the years of experience, great as a singles wrestler, as a tag wrestler, can kind of reinvent himself as needed. So I think he'd be good. I'd like to see, I'd like to see Shelton Benjamin find a home where he can maybe wrestle a little bit, but also like train and coach and help people since he's so good in the ring.
I like that. Like the idea of Shelton Benjamin having the idea of Shelton Benjamin working with Will Hobbs makes me very excited. Like there's a lot of value with Shelton Benjamin. That he's another one. Like Shelton Benjamin and Dolph Ziggler and Mustafa Ali might be the three biggest. How the hell didn't you use these guys in WWE in the past 30 years? Like it's surprising and unsurprising that they ended up on this road together. But I agree with you. I want to see Shelton Benjamin versus Alex Hammerstone really bad. Yeah. There's not a lot of like MLW dream matches. I actually like this from Ronald Hollick saying, give me Elias with the Righteous. That's an interesting call. I feel like in my head, Elias and Impact is just like the biggest slam dunk in the world. Like, but that's an interesting call because it's not so comedic, but he could kind of slide right in there. Let's not forget he was the Drifter there for a while. So
yeah, I assume like you have like Neil Dashwood and Riddick Moss go like maybe they both go Impact, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because WWE can't figure out how to ever use Tenille.
So weird that they had her back to flirt with Madcap on SmackDown like 6 times and do 3 matches or something. Like just silliness, if that's what you brought her back for. But yeah, it's always a sad day when people are losing their jobs, and our best to all of the talent wherever they end up. I can't get the idea of Mustafa Ali versus Will Ospreay out of my mind. I can't do it. It's impossible. Will Ospreay turning the US title into the UK title, and the way he keeps talking about it, defending it across so many continents, Joe, it feels like maybe he's bringing back ultimately the Intercontinental title, and the idea of Mustafa Ali getting to do the gimmick he never got to do in WWE of being that champion, I think is something that could be very, very, very fun. But that match just like popped into my head, and I can't stop fixating on how great it would be. Like I need it. So, and then, yeah, we can talk briefly about Jade. I know that's official now. And I also wanted to touch base just on what do you think this new era that Tony Khan keeps alluding to is. I'll tell you what I think it is versus what my dream of it is. But Jade going to WWE, I think makes total sense. She'll be missed in AEW, but I feel like if anybody fits in WWE, it's Jade. Like, I think that is a platform that will minimize her weaknesses and enhance her strengths to the fullest extent of the law. That was always her end goal. Good for her. I have a ton more to say about it. I think we're entering the HBO Max era, and that's all this is. He has been more careful with his announcements since everybody thought Christian Cage was going to be like CM Punk or Brock Lesnar. My dream is, and I don't think this is it, but this is just what my heart wants. I want talent share New Japan AEW contracts available. So Will Ospreay could work New Japan and AEW, and Leo Rush could work New Japan and AEW if he went back or whatever. Like, there's so much value in that of like New Japan strong, maybe being like a stronger presence of a linchpin dojo or something. But we've seen Mox working Japan. We've seen Eddie working Japan. We've seen ZSJ showing up in ROH. We've seen Ospreay on AEW television over and over again. Like, making it an official talent share, I think, is something that could be so cool. That's just what my heart wants. I think it's probably just going to be Max, though.
I was going to ask you, what's the ratio of getting what your heart wants versus not getting what your heart wants?
I mean, the thing that my heart wanted more than anything was CM Punk to come back, and that happened. So sure. I can't, and it didn't end the way that I was hoping it would.
And you saw Eddie win a title at Grand Slam.
I did.
I mean, your track record's probably not that bad, so yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I think it probably, HBO Max seems to be kind of what's been being floated around in the wind. So that wouldn't surprise me. And then Jade going to WWE was, I think it's interesting that she's obviously a big enough star, having enough potential where, WWE is not looking past the whole, like, we don't sign people over the age of, like, women over the age of 30. I think she's 31 now, so.
I mean, that was also before they were under the TKO era.
Sure.
But I think the idea for that was if you're in developmental proper versus I think she might just go to the main roster.
Yeah.
So that's what I think might be the case there. They've certainly gone out of her way to make her feel like a star. I'm wondering if that's a her thing or if that's going to be like a more standard thing for incoming talent under this new umbrella. Because it feels very much like how they treat UFC stars or whatever. So,
you see, kind of playing off that, you see like this, obviously a couple years ago, Cody moved over. Now Jay's moving over. Like, do you see like one person every year, every 2 years, maybe going from one promotion to another?
Oh, at least. And I think what you're going to see more is like the Brian Pillman Juniors of the world going to NXT.
Right.
Like, I think not everyone's going to be such a main feature that switches back and forth. I don't think MJF is. No. I think he's resigned personally because I don't think they let him talk about it that much on TV if he hasn't. I think Ricky Starks stays in AEW if they figure out how to make things work. But I think you're going to see a lot of people work in both places. I think you could very well see Cody back in AEW at some point. So I think that it's healthy and I think that it's good. And if you think of how many people came over from WWE to AEW, it shouldn't be that surprising that some people go the other way. And I think Jade would benefit greatly from a performance center. Like, I think she still has a really long way to go in the ring. A lot of her matches were squashes. A lot of her matches were on the only program where you can edit matches, which I don't think was a coincidence because she's gotten a lot better. She's still very, very new at this, right? Her strengths are going to be more in the charisma, presence arena, and she's unbelievable in delivering that. So I think WWE is going to be able to hold her hand on the in-ring a little bit better than AEW was just because the structure is going to benefit her more.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, that just about wraps us up here at the Mark Order Podcast. We do want to encourage you to leave a thumbs up and subscribe on your way out if you would be so kind. Those little actions from you go a really long way for us, so we do appreciate it. And we will remind you to head over to ProWrestlingTees.com and pick up a Mark Order t-shirt, one of our 4 extremely inspired designs. And I will remind you that if you don't, you hate women. Follow us on social media at Mark Order Podcast on basically all socials, on Twitter, on Instagram, on the TikTok. I think we have a Facebook page. I don't know. That's mostly for old people. But we do appreciate your support on social media. Everything you could ever need about us is in the link tree on those social media platforms. But Joe, where can the good people find you?
Oh, I'm out there on the social networks and whatnot at _Asian Joe. And then usually in my little bio, I have a link with my serial review blog that I do for funsies. So maybe I'll have a new blog up this Sunday. We'll see. So
more people need to do things for funsies, Joe.
Yeah.
They really, really do. You can catch me at Miss Kate Fabe on Twitter. You can catch me on Fightful Select for pay-per-views that are not NXT, doing an alternate post show. I will try to hop on there after Wrestledream if I'm back in time. If there's a press scrum, which I think there is, I will not be there. But I will be doing the No Mercy NXT review. So I will be missing Collision, but I will be muting NXT when Zack Sabre Jr. is on commentary because I need to hear him and Nigel McGuinness talk about Bryan Danielson so bad. But you can normally catch me on Monday nights on Fightful Select as well, doing the Raw Sour Grabs post show. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays on the Fightful main channel, doing your NXT, ROH, and SmackDown reviews. And every Wednesday, right back here at the Mark Order Podcast, and sometimes on Sundays on Fightful Overbooked with Joel, doing Kate and Joel Call It in the Ring. We have been very sporadic through the summer, but check me out there. Appreciate your support. Have a safe and wonderful rest of your week and enjoy wrestling this weekend. I'm so excited for Wrestledream. We're out of here.
Yeah.
This concludes the Mark Order podcast. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. Join the Mark Order.